Okay, once again, good afternoon, all of you. And so let's start the class where we left yesterday. So yesterday we looked at how to take care of deflection or keep the deflection within the limits by taking care of the span to effective depth ratio. And before we proceed further, I just want you to take a note of it. This one, deflection limits. Total deflections taking place after the construction of partitions or application of finishes must not exceed span divided by 350 or 20 mm, whichever is less, unless a provision is made for movement which may otherwise damage the partitions or finishes. Okay, so the total deflections taking place after construction of partitions and application of finishes must not exceed span divided by 350 or 20 mm, whichever is less. You please make a note of it. This is also given in IS 456. Okay. And also there is another limit, final deflection. Final deflection, that is like overall sag of horizontal members due to all loads, including the effects of temperature, creep, shrinkage, as measured below the level of casting, suppose measured from the level of its casting. Okay, when you apply these loads, what is going to happen? It's going to sag. So final deflection after applying all these loads measured from the level of casting should not exceed span divided by 250. This will ensure both the satisfactory appearance and efficiency of the structure. The harmful effects of large deflection can be reduced by the provision of an initial camber. That is another way of countering the deflection. Okay. Anyway, we'll at this stage, let's not focus too much on this. But there is you can have a provision of a camber, initial camber. Such a provision must be restricted in general to span divided by 250. So initially itself, if you provide some camber of span divided by 250, the final deflection, let's assume it's going to be around span divided by 250. That's whatever initial camber that you provided is going to counter the deflection. So you are going to have, like, you will remain at the level of casting. Okay, with respect to the supports or other. Let's complete reading this. Such a provision must be restricted in general to span divided by 250. Otherwise, a satisfactory minimum stiffness may not be achieved. Otherwise, satisfactory minimum stiffness may not be achieved, and dynamic effects under variable loads could become objectionable. Okay, this is the consequence of this one. Okay. And also there is a limit. Lateral deflection may be restricted to height divided by 500, which will avoid difficulties with glazing panels, light openings, etc. Anyway, we will in the current this one or in the today's class, we will be focusing more on the deflection of horizontal members. Okay. We are not going to look at the lateral deflections. This is for a building or something like that. Okay. So these two things you note down. Total deflection taking place after construction of partitions or applications of finishes must not exceed span divided by 350 or 20 mm. And also final deflection. When I say final deflection, what I mean is due to all loads, including the effects of temperature, creep, shrinkage, accounting these three things, temperature, creep, shrinkage, put together shall not exceed span divided by 250. You can easily see span divided by 250 value is going to be higher than span divided by 350 or 20 mm. Or at least span divided by 350 you can compare, because denominator is more here. And why that small allowance is given? Because you are considering other effects as well in addition to the loads. Okay, so make a note of this. So in today's class we'll make use of Annexure C procedure. Annexure C deflection calculation procedure is given. So we are going to calculate actual deflection, and then compare with these limits. Any questions here? So let's see Annexure C. Let's open that, keep in front of us. Okay, Annexure C. Here it is giving total deflection. Here you can see the title, total deflection. Total deflection is sum of short-term deflection and also long-term deflection. What is short-term deflection? That is given here. So we are going to take a numerical example and go through the steps and understand how to calculate short-term deflection. And to this short-term deflection, if you add other things, deflection due to shrinkage, and deflection due to creep, your long-term deflection is going to you will be arriving at your long-term deflection. And we need to compare the actual value of deflection that we get from this procedure or these formulas should be within that span divided by 250 or span divided by 350 or 20 mm, whichever is less. Just now we noted, depending on what loads you are considering. Okay, so let's take an example. So I want you to take a note of it. Before that, any questions here? So take a note of this example. Professor Amlan, you want to add something?
So you go through the example. After that, if there is any clarification required, I shall clarify that.
Okay. So make a note of this. Rectangular section, 200 mm wide by 450 mm overall depth, reinforced with 3 bars of 16 mm diameter at an effective depth of 420 mm. So the cover thickness is 30 mm. Okay. 2 hanger bars of 12 mm diameter are provided at the compression face. Effective span of the beam is 5 meters. Beam supports a service load of 10 kilonewton per meter. It's a uniformly distributed load. Load per meter or unit length is given, 10 kilonewtons per meter length. And FCK value is given, FY value is given, the characteristic strength of concrete and yield strength of steel is given. And you see what is asked. What is asked is compute the short-term deflection and the long-term deflection. Okay, here we are going to make use of Annexure C of IS 456 for both calculation of both of these. Finally, after calculating this deflection, we are going to compare with this deflection limits that we just noted in the beginning of today's class. Okay, so please kindly take note of this. Span is given, beam is simply supported, you can assume it to be simply supported. Okay, and service load is given. So how you are going to calculate the deflection? What is the deflection formula for simply supported beam subjected to uniformly distributed load of intensity W per unit run? Anybody? What is the formula? Huh? You have to be interactive, understand? What is the formula for maximum deflection? you need to be more interactive, understand? Okay, let me go further. So take a note of this data. You please take a note of this in your notebook. Whatever problem statement in that, from that problem statement, whatever data that is you can observe, that is all noted here. Width of the beam or breadth of the beam denoted with small b is 200 mm. Overall depth is 450 mm. Effective depth is 420 mm. Span of the beam 5 meters. Distributed load Q denoted with the letter Q, small q, 10 kilonewton per meter. And what about reinforcement? Reinforcement is 3 bars of 16 mm diameter. So 3 times pi 16 square divided by 4. And if you calculate that, it's going to be 603 mm square. One of you quickly check whether this is correct or not. Whether tension reinforcement is 603 or not, you please check the numerical value. 3 bars of 16 mm diameter. And what about the steel? Please note that 2 hanger bars are also there. For calculation of deflections and other things, you can actually take advantage of them, because these 2 hanger bars are going to be on the compression side for deflection calculations, as well as to check the deflection limits. You can take advantage of these 2 hanger bars. So area of steel in compression is 2 bars of 12 mm diameter. 2 times pi 12 square divided by 4. Okay, so that's going to be area of steel in compression. Please check whether this is correct or not. Any discrepancy, immediately bring to notice. And FCK value is given, FY value is given. So you can easily calculate modular ratio. And from FCK value, you can also calculate EC. EC is short-term modulus of elasticity of concrete. It is given in the first few pages of IS 456. When we noted the properties of concrete and when we looked at this concrete, we spent some time and then we noted this equation, 5000 root FCK, provided FCK is in Newton per millimeter square. And finally, the value of E is also going to be Newton per millimeter square. And one more thing, tensile strength of concrete, or the modulus of rupture of concrete, that is denoted with FCR here. FCR is 0.7 root FCK. This is also given in your code book, IS 456. And again here FCK, you need to substitute in Newton per millimeter square. And finally FCR, you are going to get in Newton per millimeter square. Any questions here? Did anybody cross check this? Can somebody confirm whether this is correct or not?
Yes, sir, both are correct.
Okay, thank you. Please be interactive. Understand, at least one of you should take a lead. Okay. And next is we noted the data and then service loads. Please note that what is the applied load that is given? 10 kilonewton per meter run, that is given applied load, but beam itself is going to have self weight. So we need to take care of that self weight, because beam has to withstand on its own. So it's self weight plus applied load. So what is the self weight? Cross sectional dimensions are given. B 200, D capital D, that is overall depth is 450 mm. Then you can find what is the cross sectional area of cross section. Okay, and multiply with the density of concrete. Here it is taken as 25 kilonewton per meter cube. So that gives you, for self weight, you need to use overall depth, because entire cross section weight has to be considered. So self weight is denoted with a small g, and that is this one. And this is applied load, service load. Add them together. That's going to give you, anyway, here it's mentioned as service load, but This is nothing, this is service load or this is total load. Denoted with small w, sum of these two. 2.25 plus 10, 12.25 Newton per 12.25 kilonewton per meter run, or you convert into millimeters, it is 12.25 Newton per mm. Okay. And before I projected this slide, I asked you this one. Please, you need to be like no, this simple for simple geometries or simple boundary conditions. For simple loadings like uniformly distributed load and point load, you need to have these formulas at your fingertips. Okay. So short-term deflection is given by phi divided by 384 WL power 4 divided by EC. Sorry, EC, this is flexural rigidity of beam, which is E times moment of inertia of the beam. And EC is Young's modulus of concrete. That is already its material property from FCK you calculated. So you know what is EC. Now comes, we need to know what is this I effective. Because this is a reinforced concrete section, we need to refer annexure C, how to calculate this. Okay, you just go back to your annexure C of IS code. Here, a short-term deflection may be calculated by the usual methods for elastic deformations. Whatever you studied as a part of your structural analysis or mechanics of materials. Assuming everything is within the elastic limit. So usual methods for elastic deflections, you can make use of that formulas and adopting or using this short-term modulus of elasticity of concrete EC and effective moment of inertia IF. IF is given by this. You please make a note of it. IF is IR divided by 1.2 minus MR divided by M, Z divided by D, multiplied by 1 minus X divided by D, BW divided by B. In our case, this BW is, please note that this formula, this expression is for a general case, for a flanged section also, or it is applicable for flanged section also. If it is our case, it's a rectangular section, so BW is same as B. So this is going to, BW is going to be same as B, or this you can take it as 1, this ratio. Okay, you take a note of this, or if you have in front of you this code book, then keep it open. And now in this equation, MR is cracking moment. That is going to depend on your FCR and I gross. I gross is nothing but they taking the entire cross section of the this rectangular section. And YT is the distance from the centroid to the extreme fiber, from CG of the cross section to the extreme fiber in tension. Please note that ours is a rectangular cross section beam. The cross section dimensions are 200 mm by 450 mm overall depth. And when you keep loading this beam, having this cross section, initially what is going to happen is the entire cross section is going to resist whatever load you are applying. Okay, and please note that in design, what we considered is we considered concrete below neutral axis to be ineffective. Okay, in the design, whatever so far we have discussed. And now here, this cross section initially before this cracking moment is reached, or before the load that you applied results in a moment which is greater than this cracking moment, beam is going to be intact, in the sense entire cross section of beam is going to resist the load. Okay, so the moment of inertia of the section, gross moment of inertia of section is going to be the moment of inertia of the entire cross section. That is 200 by 450. And the centroidal axis, before, please note one more thing, before this cracking moment is reached, because of application of load, before the maximum bending moment in the beam is below this cracking moment, steel is not going to resist any load. Okay, only once concrete is cracked, then only steel is going to come into action. So before cracking moment is reached, before the maximum moment in the beam is less than the cracking moment, only concrete is going to be taking the load. Concrete is only going to be resisting the load. So when you are calculating gross moment or moment of inertia of gross section, you can ignore the steel. That you keep in mind. That is what is mentioned here. Moment of inertia of gross section about centroidal axis, neglecting the reinforcement. Why neglecting the reinforcement? Because the moment is less than, whatever applied moment is less than the cracking moment. Only once the crack is formed, steel is going to come into its action. Okay, so gross, for calculating gross moment of inertia, you neglect the steel reinforcement. And YT is the distance from centroidal axis of gross cross section, neglecting the reinforcement to the extreme fiber in tension. So when you are calculating this cracking moment, you consider it as just a plain concrete section having dimensions 200 by 450. If it is a rectangular cross section having B is equal to 200 mm, depth D is equal to 450 mm, what is going to be your moment of inertia formula? BD cube divided by 12. Okay, so this gross moment of inertia is going to be 200 multiplied by 450 cube divided by 12. And what about your YT? YT is going to be 450 is the overall depth. Half of 450 is going to be your YT. Okay, any questions? So you need to calculate your cracking moment like that. And that is what before that effective moment of inertia formula, whatever is there in the code book, that is noted. Okay, and also code is saying this effective moment of inertia is going to lie between two values. One is this moment of inertia of cracked section, moment of inertia IR is moment of inertia of cracked section, and IGR just now we discussed gross moment of inertia ignoring the reinforcement and before the crack is formed. So I effect is going to lie between these two limits. And why code is giving this kind of limits, or that is when we calculate, we need to just cross check whether this I effective is lying usually, or it should lie between these two. Okay, I effective cannot be more than or cannot be less than cracking moment, or cannot be more than gross moment of inertia of the moment of inertia of the gross cross section. Okay, this is just a guideline in the sense a cross checking, because please note that if you implement all this in a computer program, if you make a mistake in your somewhere in your code, and if it turns out something, the value is different, for checking such kind of things, you can make use of this. Okay, anyway, I effective is given by this. Now we were discussing about MR, cracking moment. Okay, and for calculation of cracking moment, we need to know what is gross moment of inertia. Just now I explained to you in detail. That is what is given here. Okay, you just take a note of it. If you have any questions, so let me know. And we have not discussed this, we'll discuss now. This one, the top one. Gross moment of inertia. Any questions? What about cracked moment of inertia? Cracked moment of inertia, since you already solved some design examples, you already know how to calculate neutral axis depth. Once you get the neutral axis depth, use the transformed section or that approach and get the cracked moment of inertia. So that is what is adopted here. It's all self-explanatory. The section is 200 divided by 450. Okay, 200 divided by 450. How do you find the neutral axis depth? Neutral axis depth is obtained by equating moment of area in compression to moment of area in tension. So that is what is used. Only thing is here the notation is slightly different. X is used for neutral axis depth. X is used for neutral axis depth. Okay. Other than that, everything is self-explanatory. You just go through this equation and then substitute the numerical values, solve this quadratic equation. You cross-check this, whether this numerical value 146 neutral axis depth is correct or not. If you are unable to do it right away, you can check it after the class. Okay. Any questions? So once you get neutral axis depth, you can do the other things. And the cracked moment of inertia is given by the moment of inertia of the uncracked portion of concrete about the neutral axis plus modular ratio times area of steel and the distance from the centroid of the CG of the steel to the neutral axis, square of that. Is all familiar to you. This is what is cracked moment of inertia of cracked section. Please take a note of it. Any questions? Please take a note of it. Even if you have not noted, if you are not noting down all the things, at least note down neutral axis depth 146 mm. Moment of inertia of cracked section 7.95 times 10 power 8 mm power 4, and gross moment of inertia is 15.18 multiplied by 10 power 8 mm power 4. Please take a note of these three quantities. So now we got gross moment of inertia and we can calculate what is cracking moment. Okay. Any questions? So cracking moment. Cracking moment is given by this. Cracking moment is going to depend on your modulus of rupture, which is 0.7 root FCK multiplied by whatever gross moment of inertia of the section just now we noted. And for calculating this cracking moment, YT is half of the overall depth. So the cracking moment is this. Again, please take a note of it along with the units. Please use consistent units. F is Newton per mm square, and I is mm power 4, Y is also in mm. So final value is going to be Newton mm. Okay. And in your I effective formula. So now just now what we did is we found what is this we found what is this cracking moment, and you see this equation. So in the denominator you have Z. Z is nothing but lever arm for the cracked section. You know neutral axis depth, you know the effective depth. So effective depth minus neutral axis depth divided by 3 is going to be your lever arm. D is the effective depth, which is 420 mm. X is the neutral axis depth. And BW and B are same for this section. So substitute all this information in this equation, get I effective. And whatever value of I effective that you get, you please cross check whether it is lying between IR and I gross. Okay? Suppose whatever I effective you are getting is not within these limits, there must be some mistake here. Either mistake in units or something else. You need to cross check. And M is the applied moment. M is the applied moment. M is the applied moment.
Let me, I'm just adding a sentence here. See, this I effective is applicable when the applied moment exceeds the cracking moment. That means once the section has cracked, then only you use I effective. In case if the applied moment is less than the cracking moment, then it is an uncracked section. And you should be directly using the gross moment of inertia. That means before calculating the I effective, make sure that M exceeds M cracking. Then your I effective will be less than I gross. Okay.
Okay, anyway, that we are going to check here. Whatever just now Professor Amlan mentioned, you need to check that, because otherwise our effort is waste and whatever we are going to do is not correct. So that's why applied moment is also calculated. How do you get applied moment? Simple formulas, assuming it to be simply supported, WL square divided by 8. 1 by 8 is nothing but 0.125. So M applied moment is 0.125 WL square. W is whatever you noted, total load per meter run, including the self weight and the applied load, which is 12.25 kilonewton per meter. Or it turns out it is same as for Newton per millimeter. Okay. Anyway, so that is what is calculated here, and everything converted to consistent units, because this is in Newton mm. Better you also have this in Newton mm so that you can make a comparison. You can see here, this is 0.211. This is 0.383. So this is more than this. This is more than this. This is what Professor Amlan was mentioning. So I effective, using this equation, you need to calculate I effective only if this M is exceeding MR. Okay. So now you have all the information that is required for calculating I effective. You please calculate I effective and take a note of this, and you can cross check all these numerical values whether they are correct or not. It's your responsibility. Okay. So I effective turns out to be 9.037 10 power 8 mm power 4. And you also noted what is IR and I gross and I cracking, or the cracked moment of inertia you noted. You just cross check whether this is lying between those or not. If this is not lying, then there must be some mistake here. You must have made some mistake. You please cross check. Okay. Once you got I effective, you go to the formula and get the short term deflection. 5 divided by 384 WL power 4 divided by flexural rigidity of beam, calculated using short term modulus of elasticity, calculated using short term modulus of elasticity EC, and I effective, that is calculated. Once again, let's say the moment applied is less than this value, then I effective is going to be same as I gross. Okay. So quickly take a note of it. Any questions? Any questions? This is short-term deflection. And for long-term deflection, we need to add.
So, yeah, I just want to mention that in case if you get confused with the expression of deflection, then these are given in SP16 in table 98, the last page. If you look into SP16, then those values of deflection are given. And you can use that during your computations. Yeah, let's open SP16, the last page.
Here.
Yes, this table 98, yes.
And you may ask, what is this? Here it is written WL cube, whereas we are using WL power 4. Please note that here W is total load. W is total load. Whatever load we are using is per meter length. So total load is load per meter length times the length of the beam. That's why when you are using load per meter length, it is WL power 4. Anyway, these things you should be able to easily guess because you have undergone structural analysis course and also apply this mechanics of materials course. Okay, and depending on various boundary conditions, the deflection formulas are given. And please note that you don't expect this kind of thing formula to be given in for your examination. For your examination, you should remember these basic, some of these basic things. Don't complain, it's not given such kind of things. Okay, any questions here? Short-term deflection. If there are no questions, let's proceed further. Okay, so what is the next one? Long-term deflection. Let's see the code book. Okay, code book, let's see short-term deflection. And please note that whatever beam that we considered is a simply supported beam. For continuous beams and other things, you need to do something you need to do some interpolation and other things. These are self-explanatory, or if you attempt and if you have any questions for continuous beams, we'll discuss at that time. Okay, so ours is a rectangular cross section. It's not a flanged section. Whatever example we are looking at, and it's a simply supported beam. So we calculated I effective, and we also estimated short-term deflection. And now let's see the other things. Long-term deflection includes deflection due to shrinkage as well as deflection due to creep. So how to calculate deflection due to shrinkage? Let's quickly look at it. Deflection due to shrinkage, it is denoted with ACS. A is nothing but in the code book, A is small a is used to denote the deflection. CS is for shrinkage. Okay, it is given by some constant which depends on the boundary conditions, support conditions, and this shrinkage curvature. Shrinkage curvature is this psi CS. This Greek letter psi CS is shrinkage curvature, that is given by a factor times a factor which is going to be a function of your compression reinforcement percentage, tension reinforcement percentage. Okay, and this shrinkage strain, epsilon CS, is ultimate shrinkage strain of concrete. And when we were discussing about this concrete, the properties of concrete, we noted this shrinkage strain of concrete, ultimate shrinkage strain of concrete. You just go to 6.2.4. Okay, so we'll be following this. Ours is a simply supported beam. We are assuming it to be simply supported. So K3 is 0.125. and K4 is going to depend on percentage of tension steel, percentage of compression steel. Depending on the difference between percentage of tension steel and compression steel, whether they are lying between 0.25 and 1, or if it is exceeding 1. Is it clear? Everything is self-explanatory. So once you plug in all this here, once you calculate shrinkage curvature using this equation or this formula here, and then substitute that here, and L is your length of the beam. So once you plug in all this, you are going to get deflection due to shrinkage. Any questions? Hope all of you are following, okay? So now let's see that. Let's plug in all that, okay? Before that, what is long-term deflection? That is noted here. Long-term deflection is denoted with this, in this example, it is denoted as A small a is for deflection, LD. LD is long-term deflection. It is sum of short-term deflection plus shrinkage deflection plus creep deflection. So just now, whatever we have seen section NHRC, under that we have seen a section where deflection due to shrinkage, how to calculate it is given. And we also seen that shrinkage deflection is denoted with small a CS. Okay, so let's calculate this, and after that we need to calculate creep deflection, then sum it up all these three, we are going to get the long-term deflection. Let's see shrinkage deflection form procedure, shrinkage deflection calculation. Let's see that. So whatever I showed you, those formulas, you making use of those equations or formulas, shrinkage deflection is calculated. And K3 is going to depend on your support conditions, and this shrinkage curvature is given, which is function of ultimate shrinkage strain of concrete. This we noted when we are looking at concrete properties. 0.303 shrinkage strain. And whatever I explained to you, K4 is going to depend on percentage of tension scale, compression scale. You please check all these numerical values, okay? You can see your percentage of tension scale is, you noted total area of AST value is 603 divided by B times D, B times effective depth. Please see here, B times effective depth multiplied by 100. Here, similarly here, this is the area of steel in compression because of two hanger bars are there. Those two hanger bars, because you are anyway, steel is provided for hanger bars, which is going to be in compression. Advantage is taken of them for deflection calculation. So ACS or ASC, area of steel in compression, 226 mm square, based on that percentage of compression steel is calculated. That is PC, and the difference is noted. Finally, K4 is this, and finally shrinkage deflection due to shrinkage is this one. Please take a note of it. Short-term deflection, I hope you have noted that deflection value 4 point something. Quickly take a note of it, time is running out. This final value, I want you to note down this final value. ACS is 0.784 mm. And what about this short-term deflection, which is denoted with A1 permanent, PRM? It is 4.94 mm. Because these two quantities are required, you please take a note of it. Okay? Any questions? So now let's see how to calculate this deflection, creep deflection. So let's go to the code book, NHRC, creep deflection. Deflection due to creep or creep deflection due to permanent loads. It is denoted with A subscript CC PRM, permanent loads, creep deflection. May be obtained from the following equation. You please pay attention to this equation, okay? AC per this one, ACC PRM, that is nothing but the permanent creep deflection due to permanent loads. It is given by AICC permanent, AICC minus A1 PERM. That's why I told you, you note down what is A1 PERM. A1 PERM is nothing but short-term deflection. That 4.94. 4.94 mm. That is what this one already calculated. Now we need to see how to calculate this one. First of all, what is this AICC permanent? That is nothing but you read this initial plus creep deflection due to permanent loads obtained using an elastic analysis with an effective modulus of elasticity. Please note that when we are calculating short-term deflection, what is the modulus of elasticity that we used? EC is equal to 5000 root FCK. At that time, I emphasize that is short-term modulus of elasticity. So here it is saying you need to use long-term or elastic modulus of elasticity taking care of the creep. So that is what is this one? ECA. ECA is effective modulus of elasticity taking creep coefficient into account. And this is given by EC, whatever short-term modulus of elasticity divided with 1 plus theta. Theta being the creep coefficient. This also we noted when we were discussing about the properties of concrete. Is it clear? So first thing before we find deflection due to creep, we need to calculate this one. And that is actually, this one is actually equal to initial whatever for this problem it is 4.94 mm plus we need to calculate creep deflection due to permanent loads taking this modulus of elasticity and using the same formula, that is 5 by 384 WL power 4 EC is what we used earlier. Now we need to use ECE times I effective. Okay, so any questions? If it is clear, then let's see whether that is what is done here or not. So that is here A1CC permanent is calculated first, which is initial plus creep deflection due to permanent loads obtained using modulus of elasticity EC. Okay, and the creep coefficient, we are assuming that the age of concrete is our load is applied at 28 days age. So creep coefficient corresponding to 28 days, it is given in IS 456. You please see, go and see what is creep coefficients corresponding to 28 days. Okay, you please cross check whether that is 1.6 or not. So theta is taken as 1.6, and then using this formula. Just now I told orally, instead of EC you take it as CE and then calculate. And it turns out that this is 12.84 mm. 12.84 mm. And now let's go back to the code. This is 12.84. That is A1CC per is 12.84. This is 12.84. And what is this one? What is A1 perm? That is short-term deflection. What is that value? 4.94. So from this 12.84, you subtract 4.94, you are going to get creep deflection due to creep. Okay, that is what is done here. 12.84 minus 4.94. That is going to give you creep deflection. And if you want long-term deflection, add all the short-term deflection, shrinkage deflection, creep deflection. That is going to be this. So this is the long-term deflection. So whether this deflection is correct or not, or whether this deflection is acceptable or not, whether this deflection is acceptable or not, whether it is within the codal prescribed limits or not, we need to check. So we need to go back. We need to go back to the whatever I started in today's class. First thing I started. What is mentioned here? Final deflection due to all loads, including effects of temperature, creep, shrinkage, measured below the level of casting or support should not exceed span divided by 250. Okay. Anyway, here in this problem, temperature effects are not considered. We have considered creep and shrinkage, and we calculated the long-term deflection, and that deflection should not exceed span divided by 250. And we have to check whether whatever 13 point something we got now, whether that is less than span divided by 250 or not. Okay, so that check is made here. So this 13.664, we need to compare with that. According to IS 456 code, maximum permissible long-term deflection should not exceed span divided by 250. So you know what is span, and you calculate the deflection, and the actual deflection is 13.664 mm, and so beam is satisfying the limit state of deflection, or deflection is within the permissible limits of the code. So this is in today whatever we have seen, it is exact calculation of the deflection. Yesterday we have taken care of deflection in some other manner by controlling span to effective depth ratio. Okay, any questions here?
Let me just add, see, in several situations what may happen is that the live load is not sustained, or what it means is the live load does not act permanently. In that case, see, whenever we are computing the deflections for creep with permanent load, then we may neglect the live load if it is not acting permanently. That discretion is left up to the analyst. In this particular problem, the live load has been considered to be permanent.
Anyway, you please start. You can see now with whatever is covered today in today's class, you can solve 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3 problems. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and 5 also. Part of the 5th problem also you should be able to solve. So you please attempt this, and whoever have not, I think a few enthusiastic students already submitted assignment 3. Others who have not done, you please do it and start assignment 4. In assignment 4 also, as I just mentioned, 1, 2, 3 problems, and a part of the 5th problem you should be able to solve with whatever we discussed. And if you have any questions related to this, you bring it to our attention before next class or in the next class. Okay, any other questions or comments? Or simply keeping silent, some interactiveness is required. Okay, so let me stop presenting. So no questions or comments. So if it is crystal clear, then you please attempt the assignments. Okay, we'll see you in the next